education here. Just going to exchange ideas. That's all we do, right? This specific topic, though, I'm going to build on a presentation I did last week, which was about how do I evaluate drills in terms of their transfer and the specificity of that drill to sprinting. Okay, so the lens that I use to look at a drill. And you can go back and reference that presentation. I talked about specificity and talked about transfer. So we'll kind of move on. But what we're going to do in these next few minutes here is look at a drill that literally thousands of athletes use. Okay, most of us know how to like teach it, coach it. They know what it looks like. So we're all on the same page. There's maybe little nuances, but for the most part, everyone's doing this drill the same. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at an A skip. I mean, I'm not going to travel forward. I don't want to get out of the camera, but I'm going to do it in place. Some people will call it like a switch drill or a boom boom drill, but let's just go over how I was taught. Okay, and this was years and years and years ago, how I was taught this when I first got in the industry. I feel like it's taught pretty similar today. The idea would be this: straight leg here on my stance leg, this leg up 90, hips are kind of locked in, they're neutral, torso locked in, it's straight. Okay, so from there, it's how fast you can punch down and lift up. Okay, punch down, lift up. You could be traveling, you could do singles, right? I could be traveling forward. And again, main part of the drill, you're going to punch up from the hip, down from the hip, no backside action, hips neutral, torso straight. That's how we're going to evaluate the drill. Okay, so first, let's look at it through the lens of dynamic correspondence. Okay, here's the main overarching principle for dynamic correspondence. We're looking at the movement outcome. So this always, I go to first because it reminds me like, is that sprinting? Well, it's not sprinting. Okay, we know that. You and I, we all know that. Okay, so we can kind of move on past this. We know it would just be labeled in as like a drill or as a preparation exercise. Okay, it wouldn't be labeled as sprinting. So we kind of all know that. Okay, here is where we're going to spend most of our time, these next couple elements, right? These criteria to see if this drill corresponds, has some level of specificity, thus transfers to sprinting. Okay, first one, movement characteristics. The amplitude in terms of the ranges of motion and the direction of movement. Okay, so let's spend a little bit of time. Let's go here. Let's start where there's less controversy. Let's go on the torso. Well, you want me to keep my torso upright, but we know elite sprinters have movement in their torso. Okay, frontal plane, transverse plane, and this boom action when they are in air, so they get their cycle down quicker. So that's being taken away. So there's less correspondence there, or no correspondence, as in my opinion, in terms of the torso. Okay, because it's upright. We never run upright. There's always a slight lean forward, and then there's even more movement during the actual action of sprinting. Hips, our pelvis. We're really taught to neutralize our pelvis, to lock our pelvis in. That's not what happens. If we look at block exit through max velocity, you can't tell me that there's no oscillation or movement of the pelvis, right? I mean, there's literally research on pelvic listing itself. So the correspondence there, very minimal correspondence from the pelvis region to actual sprinting. Okay, now let's look at the legs, because this is a leg drill. I would assume most of us, would assume it's a leg drill. Okay, a couple things. I'm taught keep this leg straight. That's not how we sprint. If I'm on mid stance, leg's never straight. Leg is always bent. It's squatted. Now, I am not squatting. There's a squat rack over here. I am not actually squatting. I am bent. I have flexion, but I'm squatted, right? Relative to straight. Okay, so that doesn't correspond, that element. The stance leg doesn't correspond. Let's talk about the swing leg. Okay, swing leg. Lots of controversy here too. Okay, but this drill's taught here, 90, punch straight down, no backside, you only went up. Okay, so let's talk about the backside. You're trying to tell me to eliminate backside. We know how important it is for hip extension, for the thigh to extend. If the thigh extends, then the foot and the shank are traveling behind me. If it's traveling behind me during sprinting, that's loading up my whip. That's extremely important, but that's not corresponding to this drill because you're making me eliminate the backside. Okay, so no correspondence there. Front side action, you're telling me to drive straight down. Well, yeah, I'm using my hip joint, correspondence. Driving straight down, no correspondence. Why? Because you don't run straight down. Like, we all know that. That'd be a silly argument for all of us to have. So we know that. We don't punch straight down only when we sprint. The other part is even the height. So I was told that elite sprinters, say people running like sub 10, elite worldwide, don't get to this 90-90 golden position. So if they don't get to it, why are we training it? Then if the argument is nobody gets here, then that's less correspondence if you train there. You should probably train where people are, bent knee, here, right? Okay, so the ranges of motion, the amplitude, the direction of the motion, almost no transfer or correspondence, really, except for that the hip joint is acting aggressively in a rotational manner, which we're going to talk about in the next slide. Okay, so the dynamics of effort. We're looking at force specifically. So I was told that this drill, similar vertical force demands as sprinting. So that would have transfer to the vertical force component. What about horizontal? What about rotational? Okay, and then we have the rate of force too. So you're trying to tell me the thigh angular velocity is the same on sprinting as it is that boom, boom, or A drill or switch drill? If you have that research, send it to me. I want to see the direct one-to-one relationship. A switch drill, thigh angular velocity, maximal sprinting speed. I want to see this. Otherwise, minimal to no correspondence. Okay. So the vertical, we said good. Okay. What about horizontal? Are we addressing that at all? What about rotational? Once your foot hits the ground and the shank rotates forward, are we addressing that at all in this drill? No. So there's no correspondence with those two elements of force demands, because force could be a torque-based issue too. In this case, there is an issue of the torque of the shin rotating forward. Or you're going to argue with me, well, Matt, that's not how it works. First two steps of sprinting. Okay, so first two steps of sprinting, I've already shown everybody, has a tremendous twisting element, tremendous torque taking place, the best in the world. Even Jacobs, who has minimal movement in his entire gait cycle, still loads and twists out of it, still does, okay? But anyways, so I would call that zero correspondence because I'm just punching the ground straight linear fashion. You're not even allowing me to express any type of rotational movement that I would express during sprinting. So therefore, it's no correspondence in that essence. Okay? So I talked about forces, the rate of force, and we talked about torque here. Okay, accentuated region of force production. Well, when we sprint, we're in this kind of joint angle on the support leg. Okay, but let's say you're taking that away. So your argument is, oh, we're only looking at the swing phase or the swing leg. Fine. So this is very controversial because we're doing these kind of drills up here at 90, and then the best sprinters in the world aren't getting to 90. So is that the same joint angle that's corresponding to the competition as the drill? Is it a one-to-one? Is it direct relationship? Is it specificity, therefore direct transfer? Or is the correspondence off? It's not similar. You got to ask yourself that. Okay, and then we already know the torque demands at the shin and ankle aren't there at all because we're eliminating this joint. We're just telling it to stab in the ground. So we've already eliminated any type of force and torque production at the lower leg traveling forward or twisting. So that was eliminated, okay? Intermuscular coordination, we'll kind of move past these next ones because we could spend all day on these really. Is the coordination element the same on this drill in terms of muscle groups working together, sharing forces, coordinating movement from muscle to muscle, joint to joint action? Again, to me, I would say, how can it be similar? How can the correspondence be there when the movement outcome isn't there? The kinematics aren't the same. The kinetics aren't the same. So I would argue that there would be low correspondence in the intramuscular coordination category, but let's kind of, we'll skip past this one today. That's for another day. Intramuscular coordination, same thing. Let's just kind of say that, well, the movement's not the same. How are all the muscles behaving on a local level the same? So we're saying that the local control of all these different body segments and maybe specific muscles, tendons are the same as in high-speed sprinting. I'm not sure how that could be argued, right? So instead, let's look at one thing real quick, the calf. I'm punching straight down. So my calf, is it behaving in the same isometric fashion or eccentric, concentric type of fashion that it would need to when I plant? I have to load the arch and get over the foot. I would say that correspondence is not there on that level. Okay, the physiology. Let's say that does correspond because you're doing a short movement, short range, like 10 yard. So it's 8 seconds, let's say, or right. Let's just say that the bioenergetics is similar for this drill, so we can move on. Sensory, though, this is the one I want to spend maybe a good 30 seconds, minute on. Okay, when I'm running 20 plus miles an hour, right, sprinting, or when I'm coming out of a 3 2-point stance, my head is down and then it comes up. That's not the same visual, and right. So it's not the same sensory information in terms of visual vestibular inputs to my body. It's not right. I went from down to up. This drill, I'm just here, right? I'm not traveling through space as fast. I'm not traveling at 20 miles plus miles per hour, right? So even the vestibular input is different. So I would say no correspondence in terms of the sensory information that's provided to your body, to your brain, to your nervous system on this drill as sprinting. No correspondence, okay? Side note here, right? This will be bonus material for you. This doesn't have to do with this presentation, but I feel like throwing this in. Why can't we, like say a basketball player and a football player, a soccer player, when we're doing these drills, why in the world, if you're going to do them, can't you pick up on different sensory information? Why can't you have to mimic your teammate next to you, the speed that they go at? Why can't you just look in the periphery and find different cues in the environment? Why do we have to just, oh, it's warm-ups, so let's shut our brain off, let's shut everything off, and here we go. No, like let's pick up on things at least. Let's at least have some input into the system. Okay, back to the presentation. All right, but this ties into the environment. So when we take an ecological approach, I would say there's no transfer from this drill, skipping, to high-speed sprinting in basketball, soccer, football, rugby, lacrosse. I would say no correspondence, right? Because there's no environmental demands that are even close to similar. The task is not similar. Okay, so that is just overarching kind of umbrella here of how I would look at drills, how I would evaluate them, how I would plug a drill into my dynamic correspondence equation and look at it from an environmental perspective, right, the ecological approach perspective, and then I would come out with an answer and say, yes, this drill is more useful than this drill, because that's what it comes down to. We only have so much time. Right? I'm not here to be the guy that like, oh, all your drills suck. No, I'm just saying this drill is better than this drill. Eliminate this drill. You don't have time to do it. The correspondence isn't there. The specificity isn't there, and the transfer is not there. Don't waste your time. Don't do it. Boom, do this instead. That's all I'm about, really. Okay, I'm trying to look at it as objectively as I can. All right, so hopefully you enjoyed the presentation.